I told you before, man, you're doing too much. You know, you got all this going on right here.
You know how I do.
Okay, it's not about you though.
No, it's about us.
Um, if you say so. Any event,
Oh,
hey, what's going on out there? You know who it is. It's Zeus Cruz of Olympic Multimedia giving you another segment of Get Things Done. In this case, this is a special segment. As you look over here to this side, I got my partner in crime. It's Mr. J So, aka the architect, aka the beat master. He's the one that puts the alpha and omega. Mr. Canyon, what's up, man?
what's going on?
I appreciate you being part of this segment.
Anytime.
In this segment, we're just going to kind of give you a real basic overview of how we get our music production started. We kind of elaborated, or not really elaborate, but just touch base it based on it on a previous video. But we kind of just want to visually show you just our early stages to kind of encourage producers out there who are kind of like undecisive or having a hard time of just trying to develop their musical project. We're going to go ahead and show you our steps on what we do. So here we got our DAW set up. We mentioned it before. We use Cakewalk, but pretty much the process that we're using can be aligned with any DAW of your choosing. If you notice here, we got tracks already set up. You know that within a song, it is comprised of tracks. Each track you can implement and produce different types of audio files and mix them accordingly to your fashion. The hardware that we're going to be using specifically are keyboards. That's our main source as far as comprising our music. As you notice here, we do have other types of hardware as well, but definitely our go-to are the keys. And we have a workstation, your traditional workstation keyboard, and we're going to be using a MIDI keyboard. The workstation keyboard is a Casio WK7600 series, and the MIDI keyboard is a Novation Launch Key 49. The workstation keyboard is inputted into an audio interface. Usually when you're using workstation keyboards, you will have to go ahead and get yourself a cable and allow it to be inputted into the audio interface so that the interface intermediates between the keyboard and your software so it can read the keys and the music that you're playing on the keyboard itself. So let's go right into it, man. You ready, partner?
I'm ready. Let's get it.
All right, man. So we have it set up here, the tracks. Usually within our production, some people tend to use a little bit more. We tend to use between 5 and 7 tracks to go ahead and comprise our beats. But it's all determined on what type of producer you are and how much layering you want within your track or within your music production. First things first, though, you have to make sure that your hardware is compatible and in sync with your software. So what you want to do is you want to come up to your taskbar and go to preferences. You want to start off with audio first. As you can see, we're inputting our data or our audio through our audio interface. The model that we're using is a PreSonus 24C. Definitely recommend it. You do not need the PreSonus DAW in order to utilize it. It works with any DAW. And then for our output, we're using the speakers that we have up there for the playback. You go down to MIDI, you go down to devices. First, for us to lay down our melody, because that's usually our chain of command, we start with the melody and then we kind of progress off of that. We're going to be using the MIDI keyboard first. So you got to make sure your input coincides with the keyboard or device that you're using. And it has to match, the output has to match that as well. As you can see in the input and the output, they're both checked off the same. Everything is good to go. We're going to press OK. On this track, we definitely utilize plugins. If you're not familiar with plugins, they're basically it's software that introduces you to smaller pieces of audio. that is characterized through different sound pools and sound packs. Within them sound packs and sound pools, you have a plethora of different types of synths, different types of loops, different types of audio samples that you can utilize within your production. In this particular case, we're using what is called Arcade, which is a fantastic plugin. Again, it's definitely recommended. It's subscription based. It's only $10 a month. And it gives you just an outstanding inventory of different types of sound pools and different type of things you could utilize. Usually over here, where however your DAW is set up, you usually have like a menu box. Ours is over, well, for Cakewalk is over here to the right. You have it on tabs. You have your media. Media will be like whatever you have stored on your system itself. You have your plugins, whatever that you have downloaded onto your system. And then in this particular case, you can make individual notes of each piece of production that you do. So we're going to the plugins. It's broken down into instruments, MIDI effects, and regular audio effects. In this case, we're going to be using instruments. We're going to use synths. And as you can see, we have Arcade already listed. All right, so we had already clicked on it. Once you click on it, it automatically turns it into a track. From there, you click on the icon. And then, as you can see, Arcade comes up. And there, we kind of already did our, research. You know what I mean? And we came across this really cool sound. Give the comments down below on the remarks and let us know the specifics on how to say this. I'm assuming this says "Did you dream?" Sounds like "Did you dream?" There's no "you" in it. I know. I don't know if you want to wreck your brain and.
Yeah, I got it. Passport. Boom.
Okay, then we're just gonna roll with that. Passport sounds great. You know what I mean? So, with Arcade is great because it has parameters already at your disposal, in which you can kind of tweak it a little bit to your liking, which is pretty cool. We're gonna add a little bit more saturation to it. The spread is good. We kind of want it to kind of level out within the production. The cool thing too is about you could change the chord, change the octaves, change it from a major to a minor. We're going to put this on F sharp, lock it in place. In our next video, or maybe down the road, we'll go in a little bit more in depth. They do have an option here called tweak, where you can go a little bit more fine tuning when it comes to mixing the production that you're recording. But we'll talk about it at a later date. We're just trying to go over the basics. So we have this set up, ready to go. We have our chord in place. So we're just going to go ahead and minimize that window. When you're ready to record, within your track, you have to arm the track first. That's basically giving the signal to the DAW itself that you're ready to actually record something. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and arm the track. Once we arm the track, we're ready to record. So Jay, let's lay down our first track here. What Jay is about to lay down is the melody part of our beat. So there you go. We lay down roughly about 12 seconds, almost 13 seconds worth of content. You want to go ahead and disarm your track. Kind of bring it over so it's level. And if you notice, being that he played it off a MIDI keyboard, the imprint of that audio is in MIDI format. Sometimes as a producer, you might want to work with that type of formatting. Some producers are not comfortable with that. Us, it makes really no never mind. But you do have the ability to change your MIDI into an actual audio file. And in order to do that, you have to utilize a function called a free synth. Once you click on it, it automatically processes it as you see at the top. It is processing it for you, and now it turns into waveform. It becomes an audio file now. It is somewhat easier to work with a audio file over a MIDI file. It's easier to mix, and it's easier to kind of like implement other types of sounds into the production, whereas MIDI is kind of like very straightforward. So whatever you're retrieving from or whatever you're trying to add onto that production, if it's not in MIDI form, it kind of rejects it at times. So it's probably best to just go ahead and convert the audio, but you can go ahead with your production and just keep it in MIDI. You're wondering why he only did 12 to 13 seconds worth of time. That's because we're working digitally and not in analog form. So it's not meant for you to play through the entire chord progression or chord arrangement of your beat. You can literally just go here to your track. You're going to right click. You're going to go up to edit. You go ahead and copy it. These are presets. You pretty much want to keep it just like that. You can make the adjustments if you want. You go ahead and press OK. You line your marker according to the end of the track. You're going to right click again. You're going to go up to edit. This time you're going to paste. Let's scroll over. And as you can see, there are times when you run into a situation where it goes ahead and blends. But as you can see, you can move it onto a different track as you want. And bam, you have it on the same track. But as I just showed you, you can easily just kept it on that track. Again, it's just depending on you as a producer. You might want to use that track and utilize it for something different. Sometimes it's good to do this. If you go ahead and copy what audio you produced and you paste it and you're making another duplicate of that file that you just recorded, you can actually line it up like I did on top of it, and it provides what is called a chorus effect. So basically it just fattens up your sound. So some people like to actually use that effect, the chorus effect, but some people like to tailor-made that effect by just doubling up on their files and then just kind of stacking them by utilizing the tracks. So it's all dependent on what you're trying to do. We're going to leave that as is. I just wanted to kind of show you the ability of what you can do with that. So now that we layer down the melody, the next thing we want to do is we want to start adding little textures into the beat to just kind of give a little extra to the production. Obviously, you want to utilize and do different things to your production. You could just leave this the same and just kind of just add a drum pattern to it, or maybe a soft bass line to it, and then you pretty much have a beat. But it's all dependent on what specifics are you looking for and what the desired results you want out of your production. In this case, we're going to go up in arm track 1, and we're going to go ahead and add these hi-hats. So Mr. Omega, can we go ahead and do that? again, as I mentioned before, it's not needed for you to go through a length because usually your music tracks or your music songs or your production usually lasts around what 3.5 to 4 minutes long. It's not needed for you to do that. As I just showed you here, you can easily duplicate that file and just move it down the track. But as you can see, he went ahead and added. So we have a nice introduction when it comes to this beat. We're starting to add a little bit of texture to it just to give it a interesting feel or a new perspective within the beat. So we're going to keep on adding to this. Right here with this production though, maybe not so much with like if you're inputting synths or you're inputting like hi-hats, low hats, snares, and drums, but snares and kicks. But with your production here with the melody, a cool thing to do is let's go ahead and highlight this. Let's go up here to processes. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and quantize it. What does quantize mean? Quantize allows you may not know the full range of the chords and know much about chord progression, but you know enough to know that certain keys fall into place and you can go ahead and make a melody out of them. You know what keys go good together. This allows you to go ahead, even if you play off key. Once you quantize it, it puts it back in place. So even if you feel like you made a mistake while you're laying down your melody, the beautiful thing about it is that you don't have to go ahead and redo it. You can just go ahead and quantize it. And you have it in different measurements. As you see here, there's a whole plethora of different measurements. The main one that me and Jay use is 1/8 or 1/8 triplets, either way. So we got that set in place. A lot of all these are pretty much, again, presets. You can adjust them the way you see fit. And that's it. Again, you can make the necessary changes you need, but it's not necessary. You go ahead and press OK. And it automatically quantizes it for you. So everything's just set in place. I'm not saying you can't do it when it comes to like hi-hats, close hats, the kicks and the snares. You could. A neat thing with these though is, let's highlight this again. And what you could do is the same thing, but instead you could do a groove quantize. So it puts the notes in place. As we put this at 1/8 as well, you want to keep everything coordinated, whatever you start off with. But you can actually change the feel of it and the groove of it. So a big one that we use is the hard shuffle. We'll make this actually a 1/8 triplet. And you can go ahead and press OK. And then all that is set in place. Then obviously, if you want to just make sure, you can always just go ahead and play back. It might sound like the same audio when we first played it, played it the first time, but actually I can tell the difference. I can hear the difference. The hi-hats are more in sync with the melody. So now let's move on to the next thing. Now we're going to add like a basic little synth just to give the hi-hats just a little bit more oomph to it. So we're going to lay that down on this second track. And again, we're using the workstation keyboard. So let's arm the track once again. And Jay, let's lay that down real quick. So we got that layer down. And again, it may not seem much to you just by initially hearing it, but it just adds just a nice little complexity to the hi-hats that we lay down. Again, this arm, we want to do the same thing to this, what we did with the first track. We want to come up here And we want to set that groove quantized the same way, hard shuffle with 1/8 trips. Everything locked and loaded. We go ahead, okay that, we're good to go. So now it's sounding good. We're adding a little bit more texture. We're getting there. So now what we want to do is with our third track, we want to start an introduction to our drum patterns and what's really going to scope and put this whole beat together to give it that knock. So again, we're going to go ahead and, well, before we do this, we're going to be, we're going to be utilizing the workstation keyboard.
We're going to be using it.
So we're going to go ahead and arm it. Make sure your marker, it's very important about your marker, just as a side point. You got to position it where you want to start recording. So if it's meant for you that you wanted to go to the beginning and start recording from there, then you need to move your marker to that point. You notice within the timeline, you have what are called quadrants. As you can see, these numbers are here, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then you place your marker within them quadrants. And then you can either record, you can cut and paste, you can delete something, add something, whatever you're trying to do within your production. Just make sure that you use the marker to be precisely where you need to be at on that timeline. So as you see, we got it at the beginning because that's where we're going to start. We got the track armed. So now we're going to start the beginnings of our drum pad. So we got that going with the drum pattern. You notice, very simplistic. We're just starting it, not really giving it, just remember when it comes to music production, little is more. So you don't always have to overly saturate it with a bunch of different sounds and a bunch of different things and whatnot. Usually simple speaks volumes more so than you adding a plethora of different things. We're going to go ahead and we're not going to groove quantize this. We're actually going to do a regular quantize. So again, highlight your thing, your track. Go to quantize. One each trip again. We're going to press OK. So that's set in stone. And then another thing too, just remember, not everything needs to be perfect, in which when you start early on, you're just trying to lay a foundation for yourself that you can work on, a template. You know what I mean? So now we come here, we're going to arm the fourth, and now we're going to add more texture to the drum pad. So let's arm the track in J. Let's go ahead and lay that down. So as you can see, he's adding a little bit more texture to the drums. The drums was already there, but now you're starting to mold it into an actual pattern that we can go ahead and duplicate on the track, and it'll go coincide with the melody. Disarm your track. Again, highlight it. Let's quantize it. You want to keep everything kind of coordinated. Actually, we're going to offset it and just make it 1/8. And press OK. And there you go. Within 5 tracks, we gave you a basic layout of what the production could be. Again, it doesn't meant to be all perfect and synchronized right off the gate, but it gives you that template. It gives you that the beginning to work with. The beautiful thing about it, like I said, you're able to duplicate the tracks by just a simple cut and paste. And then you can like expand your production, expand whatever you have within the track, whether it's the melody, it's the drums, what have you, the bass line itself. And then from there, make sure you make a use of quantize. I know you probably heard once we were recording that little beeping sound. That's a side note that I forgot to mention. It's called the metronome. It allows you to be in sync with the beat instead of counting, usually in bar sets, counting that in your mind. The metronome actually does it for you, and then you can actually preset that to making it 4 to 8 to 12 to 24 to 32 to 48 bar sets, depending on what you're trying to do. So, again, this is what we wanted to do. Me and my partner in crime just want to give you a basic layout of what we do when we're in the studio and how we layer and tailor lace our production. So I appreciate you tuning in. You know who it is. It's Zeus. It's J but it's also
Alpha and Omega.
It took them long enough to come up with that, but that's cool. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, it's Alpha Omega here, signing out. Appreciate you tuning in. This is Zeus Cruz of Olympia Multimedia, giving you this other segment of Get Things Done. So I guess the only thing left to say is, get things done. We're going to check you later. Now, bro, I need you to switch.